Hi beautiful ladies, welcome back to my channel. This is the Black Exotical. So today I want to talk to you about the 4B movement and its adaptation in the West, particularly by Black women. So just as a little background, the 4B movement is a radical feminist movement that was started in South Korea in around 2019, and its proponents basically renounce dating men. They renounce marriage. They renounce sex with men. And they renounce having children. And it's called a radical feminist movement because obviously these viewpoints are extreme. However, although they are extreme, the 4B movement is a response to the rampant misogyny that Korean women have faced. So there are high cases and increasing cases of DV, unaliving, 50-50 relationships while still having to bear the brunt of household chores and taking care of the family, and just being burnt out in general. Korean women are fed up, and so Korean women have said enough is enough. Unless things change, this is our response to the injustice that we're facing. And you know, I totally support women taking ownership for themselves. It is the responsibility of the man essentially to build society. Korean men built Korean society, but women play a huge role in the running and the functioning of communities. And so if their needs and their well-being is not being considered, it is the woman's right, in my opinion, to create boundaries in order to protect herself. And the 4B movement is Korean women's way of creating boundaries and saying, we are going to protect ourselves because we have told you for years what our concerns are, and the issues continue to grow and get worse. By extension, South Korea has the highest self-unaliving rate, if you will, in the world. And so that speaks to a larger issue. And so if that doesn't tell you that there is some sort of disconnect and discomfort that the people in general are feeling, then I don't know, like what else will tell you that there is some sort of issue going on in society. And men and women have different ways of dealing with things. And this is the way that Korean women have chosen to deal with their issues. I believe 100%, and I've spoken about this before in previous videos, that we are the agents of our own change. It is our responsibility to advocate for our ideal circumstances. And as a woman, even though we are not the ones who build society, and people will say, oh, well, you know, women can do as much as a man can, but guess what? It is a man's world. Men still hold large percentage of power across all countries, so would follow that it is a man's world. Men are the ones who have the power, and they make the decisions, and they therefore build society. And so Korean women are creating their own change by withholding relationships with men and building families until things get better, until things start to turn in their favor. And as a result, the Korean population is declining rapidly, and other East Asian countries are seeing similar trends in their population. China's population is declining rapidly, as well as Japan. China and Japan, they don't have an official movement. We know that having children is pretty much how you secure your country's future. That's how you build your population. And, you know, as the current population kind of ages out, the up and coming younger generation is the one who picks up where the older generation left off, but they are also the ones who are responsible for innovation and driving the country forward to compete against other countries on a global scale. So now the government is like, what's going on? You know, we need you to do your job and to have children. But Korean women are saying, until you do your job in protecting me and looking out for my well-being, everything is getting cut off. And so we're also starting to see Western women in the West, particularly Black women, kind of pick up this movement And while these cases are similar to cases in North America, especially concerning Black women, the unaliving rate of Black women is probably much higher than what is going on in South Korea. The DV cases are certainly probably much higher, or at least they are proportionate compared to Korea, which is still quite alarming because the Black community is the minority in North America. But if it is comparable and the trends are on par with what's happening with national statistics in another country, then those rates indicate that the plight of the women, the plight of Black women is quite rampant. And so some Black women are saying, we're going to adopt this movement here in the West. And while I do understand and again advocate for women taking matters into their own hands and being the agents of their own change, I do not believe that the 4B movement is the most effective way for Black women to create change. And I'm going to tell you why. For the most part, Koreans don't protect abusers the way that the Black community protects abusers. And in general, Korean women are supported by their communities, so their efforts are more likely to be successful. Whereas if Black women are shouting from the rooftops that they're going to divest from men altogether and not have families, yada, 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 it's already going to fall on deaf ears because when advocates and politicians and so on, lawmakers speak up about the plight of Black women in North America, Black women in the West. They speak about the DV cases, the gender-based violence. It falls on deaf ears. Black women are gaslit and are told that, oh no, it's not that extreme. You're lying. It's not happening like that. So Black women don't have the same support that Korean women have. Furthermore, Korean women aren't doing this to put Korean men on punishment with hopes that their behavior will change so that they can try the relationship again. They're doing this because they realize that their well-being is far too valuable to be jeopardized just so that they can say that they have a man. Whereas Black women and some Black exoticals are still very much Black male identified, and they still operate from a place of trying to get Black men's attention. So for example, you will hear a lot of Black women and Black exoticals say, I'm done with men, because they were burnt by Black men in their community, and they'll say, oh, I'm going to go date women now. Or they will say, oh, I'm going to try swirling and dating outside of my race. And then they'll keep talking about it over and over and over and over because they want Black men to kind of hear it and be like, oh, no, no, no. Okay, fine, I'll change and don't go over there. Like, I'll be the man that you want me to be. You're doing this you're doing this it's a performative action that you're doing to try to get the attention of Black men instead of saying, I want to choose a different path for my life because obviously the current state is not working for me. So Korean women, as it stands, just in general, they are very much self-centered. They do things for their well-being, and rightfully so, because Korean men and men in general do things for their own well-being. And so Black women still haven't grasped this concept. And so again, like you'll hear these talking points on social media and here on YouTube of Black women shouting from the rooftops that they're done with Black men, only for them to then turn around and end up with the same type of men that they were previously dealing with. Why? Because they didn't learn their lesson and they were just performing to sort of get a reaction, kind of like a toddler. When a toddler doesn't get their way, they throw a tantrum to get attention and hope that it'll change their circumstance. So the 4B movement is not the solution for Black women. The solution for Black women is to divest from the Black community, as I've said in many other videos, and that includes leaving Black men behind. But unfortunately, this solution has been criticized by Black women because they'd much rather, again, hold on to being pro-Black and its lack of benefits than to choose to look for greener pastures elsewhere. Divesting also isn't about leaving Black men alone. It's about leaving the Black community in general and the degeneracy that is rampant within the community. Okay, so it means choosing not to identify with pro-Black culture, choosing not to identify with antisocial ways of thinking, so broken families, not taking accountability for one's actions, thinking that you can get away with the rules because the white man, you're going to stick it to the white man and you're owed reparations, things like that. How can Black women successfully adopt the 4B movement when they aren't even willing to part ways with the Black men who harm them? And they even encourage other Black women to stay when there is glaring proof and glaring evidence that their lives are in danger. And they also aid in harming other Black women in support of Black men. At the end of the day, Black women just like to latch themselves to every new movement because they haven't sorted out their own identity yet, which is why the 4B movement is so popular right now within the Black community. You don't see any other community in the West talking about the 4B movement. Like, they'll talk about it for the sake of having conversation, as a way to kind of just draw awareness to global affairs, but they're not talking about the 4B movement sort of as a way to be like, yeah, let's go ahead and adopt this. You don't see white women talking about how they're going to adopt it. You don't see Latinas. You don't even see Western Asian women talking about how they're going to adopt the 4B movement, because those women navigate spaces in relation to their current situation and their current setting. Okay, because they recognize that, while they may have a cultural background and they may be connected that way to what's happening over in the East, they also recognize that they are not directly impacted by that because they simply don't live there. So they make the best of their current situation and they navigate based on their current surroundings. And that's what makes those women so successful, because ultimately that is how you becomes resilient. They learn how to adapt to their environment and they learn how to sort of navigate that space based on where they're at the time. So Black women, the 4B movement is not for you, okay? Stop latching yourselves onto every single new movement that you see. I bet you, like, once everyone forgets about 4B, Black women are going to launch onto that movement the same way that they did with the feminist movement. And then they realized that the feminist movement in the West wasn't for them. And they had to create their own sort of Black feminist movement instead of addressing the issues within the community that are still rampant today, okay? These issues that we see Black women facing today were the same issues that they were experiencing in the 1960s, in the 1920s, in the 1800s, and so on and so forth. And that is the lack of protection within the Black community, the lack of provision, and pretty much being left out in the cold to fend for themselves. All right, let me know what you think in the comments about the 4B movement. Have you heard about it? Do you think it will pick up steam here in the West? Do you think that it will become popular amongst Black women and Black exoticals? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.